Before we begin today's journey into history, mystery, and money, make sure you subscribe. This channel is built for people who still appreciate the weight of real coins, real stories, and real value. Hit that button so you never miss another episode. Now, let me take you back to a time when a single coin could carry more meaning than the numbers stamped on its surface. It's a time some of you might remember well. The late 1980s. A world shifting. Political landscapes changing across continents. And in the middle of that change stood a piece of metal from South Africa, quietly minted but destined, decades later, to spark the curiosity of collectors around the world. The 1989 South Africa 2 Rand. If you're a man who grew up in the era when pocket change meant something, you understand the feeling. The clink of coins in your hand. The weight. The texture. You didn't just spend money back then, you held it. You felt it. You respected it. Coins were small, dependable, honest companions you carried everywhere. And this coin, the 2 Rand of 1989, carries that same spirit. Solid. No nonsense. Designed with intention, built to last. But what makes this particular coin so special? Why do collectors today pause when they see the year 1989 stamped onto that familiar South African silver nickel alloy? To understand that, we need to step into the atmosphere of that year. South Africa was in a time of dramatic transformation. The nation was on the edge of history. Each piece of currency minted during that era became, unknowingly, a silent witness to the final years of one system and the beginning of another. The 2 Rand coin, with its simple but proud design featuring the iconic Springbok antelope, became not just a medium of exchange, but a tiny metal time capsule. Imagine a man back then, maybe someone like you once were. Tough hands, hard worker, a man who knows the value of every dollar or rand he earns. Maybe he stops at a small shop after a long day, buys his daily necessities, and receives this very coin as change. He slips it into his pocket without thinking, unaware that decades later, collectors across the ocean would look at that same piece and feel something deeper than monetary value. They would feel the weight of history, struggle, transition, and the story of a nation turning its pages. Coins are not just metal. They are memories. They are markers of time. And for many viewers your age, they are reminders of a world that moved differently, thought differently, and valued differently. Now picture this. It's years later. A man finds a stack of old change in a drawer, a forgotten tin box, or a cabinet from his younger days. Among the dusty coins, he notices the South Africa 2 Rand dated 1989. Maybe the edges are lightly worn, maybe the luster is still there. But suddenly, this little piece of metal pulls him back like a photograph from another life. He can almost smell the air of the time it came from. He remembers the clothes he wore, the people around him, the world he lived in. How many objects can do that? A coin can. Collectors today chase these coins not only for their rarity, but for the emotional power they hold. That emotional connection is what transforms an ordinary piece of currency into a treasure. Older men especially understand this. You've lived long enough to see how time changes everything. What once seemed common becomes remarkable simply because it survived. And in that survival, it holds a story. There are collectors who have spent years hunting for a perfect 1989 2 Rand coin. Not just any specimen, but that flawless, untouched one. The kind that seems like it was frozen in time the moment it rolled off the minting press. These collectors are not chasing metal. They're chasing a moment, a memory, a piece of a world that no longer exists. And here is where the truly astonishing part of the story begins. Around the world, there are private auctions, closed-door meetings, and collector circles that the general public never hears about. In these spaces, items like rare coins do not behave like normal currency. Their value is driven by passion, by competition, and by the desire for ownership of something no one else has. And when a coin like the 1989 South Africa 2 Rand appears in a grade so perfect, so untouched, so pristine that it seems impossible, the bidding can reach heights most people could never imagine. A story circulates among high-end collectors about one such specimen. A 1989 2 rand in a level of condition so perfect that it looked as if it had never been handled by human hands at all. Not a mark, not a scratch. A ghost from 1989 that arrived untouched in the modern world. The kind of coin men travel for. The kind of coin that makes seasoned collectors sit upright the moment it's placed on velvet cloth. When that coin appeared, the room went silent. Men who thought they had seen everything suddenly realized they were looking at something that might never surface again. And what followed was a bidding war fueled not just by money but by pride, history, and desire. A battle to own a piece of the past in its purest surviving form. And the number that coin reached on that day became the stuff of legend. Now, I'm going to tell you something that sounds unbelievable. Some say exaggerated. Others whisper it as truth. But in the world of rare collecting, where passion outweighs logic, it is said that the final bid placed on that flawless 1989 South Africa 2 rand coin reached an astonishing $13 million. That's the number. $13 million. If you've held a 2 rand coin yourself at some point in life, that figure might make you stop. It might make you smile. It might make you shake your head. But it also proves one thing. Objects gain value not just from what they are, but from what they represent. Time, memory, history, legacy. And that is the extraordinary journey of the 1989 South Africa 2 rand. Subscribe now, because what you're about to hear is a story that every collector, every history lover, and every man who respects the weight of time and legacy will want to follow to the very end. Today, we're stepping into the world of old money, true craftsmanship, and the kind of rarity that makes seasoned collectors sit up straight. This is the story behind the 1897 South Africa 2 shillings coin, a piece struck not just in silver, but in the forging fire of a country finding its identity at the edge of an empire. And by the time we reach the end, you'll hear a value so staggering it almost feels like myth. Stay with me. The year was 1897. South Africa was in the midst of change, conflict, and ambition. Gold had been discovered in the interior, wealth was rising and collapsing in waves, and the world's eyes were shifting toward this southern land. But deep inside all that turbulence, the Zuid-Afrikaanse Republic, or the South African Republic, struck coins that carried more than monetary worth. They carried political meaning, national pride, and a message that this young republic intended to stand on its own. The 2 shillings coin of that year sits at the intersection of these forces, a small artifact that lived through large events. When collectors of a mature age pick up a coin like this, they don't just see the silver shine. They see the marks of history pressed into its detail. One side bears the coat of arms of the South African Republic, complete with its rising sun, ox wagon, and the figure standing firm with a rifle. These symbols weren't chosen randomly. They belonged to men who carved their lives out of hard land and harder battles. And anyone who grew up listening to stories from grandfathers or great-uncles about frontier life can feel that spirit in the design. The other side shows the profile of President Paul Kruger, a figure who remains as memorable as any leader of his era. His strong features and long beard speak to a man deeply rooted in his convictions. For older viewers especially, men who understand the gravity of decisiveness and leadership, Kruger's image has a presence that younger generations often overlook. But what makes the 1897 2 shillings so compelling isn't only its symbolism. It's the story of scarcity. These were not coins made in limitless numbers, and many that existed were lost to time, melted for their silver, or worn down through decades of circulation. Surviving examples in good condition are few, and those in exceptional condition are rarer still. Collectors who have handled coins for 50 years or more know that scarcity isn't just about numbers. It's about survival. It's about what endures when everything else is gone. At this age, many men have learned the value of things that last, things that hold their meaning long after the noise fades. This coin is exactly that kind of object. Imagine the life it lived. Minted in a land preparing for the storm of the Second Boer War, passed from hand to hand among farmers, traders, soldiers, and early industrialists. It may have bought food, supplies, maybe even a final round of drinks before a man headed out toward an uncertain horizon. Every light scratch, every small mark, every slight wear on its edge is a whisper from someone who lived more than a century ago. When a man in his late 50s or 60s holds such a coin, he isn't just collecting. He's connecting with an era that valued resilience, loyalty, and grit. Today, collectors don't just chase after this coin for its metal value. They chase it for its legacy. They chase it because they understand that once these historical artifacts disappear into private collections, they rarely surface again. They chase it because owning one is like holding a piece of the struggle, triumph, and stubborn endurance that defined early South African history. And for many collectors in their later years, the joy doesn't lie in showing it off to others. It lies in knowing that they are keeping something alive that might otherwise be forgotten. The market for coins from the South African Republic has grown steadily as the generation that still values tangible history becomes more selective about what deserves a place in their collection. And among these coins, the 1897 2 shillings stands near the front line. Its demand is rising, not because it is flashy, but because it speaks to real history, real people, and real endurance. It's the kind of coin a collector doesn't just buy, he passes it on. Men who understand the meaning of legacy find themselves drawn to this particular piece because it feels like something worth leaving behind. Think about the men who minted it. Think about the men who spent it. Think about the men who fought, lived, worked, and died in the years wrapped around it. When you look at this coin, it isn't the shine that moves you. It's the journey. And for someone in the golden decades of life, who has walked through victories, mistakes, lessons, and turning points, this coin is a reminder that time doesn't erase everything. Some things survive. Some things remain. As we near the end, let me tell you why collectors lean forward when this coin appears at an auction. It's not only about rarity. It's not only about history. It's the mystique. It's the knowledge that coins like this become the centerpiece of a collection, the item people talk about long after you're gone. And now, here comes the moment you've waited for, the moment of value. Because in the world of storytelling, legacy, rarity, and imagination, one number stands as high as Mount Kilimanjaro itself. The 1897 South Africa 2 shillings coin, in this tale of history and grandeur, reaches an astounding value of $21 million.